Okay, well, thanks very much for your time, colleagues. This is Mike Anthony, and we have the pleasure and privilege of having Mike Peele on the call today. We'll be talking about NFPA 730, the Guide to Premises Security. This is a document that we've been tracking for some time now, going back to it's a relatively new document, and there's not heavy engagement in this particular document. As I like to point out, it's the only consensus document developed with ANSI regarding premises security that's developed with ANSI processes. So there's other documents that that are not, and they may have at least as much value. And so, but whenever NFPA cracks open a new document, very often we want to be able to at least watch it. Because very often you'll find general purpose language in some laws. It'll say, do what the applicable code standard says you should do. And at that point, it could be anything. So what I think I'm hoping we'll do here is let Mike, I'm going to ask Mike some questions. This will basically be a Q&A session. And Mike, maybe you should tell us a little bit about what you do and then tell us about your experience in writing NFPA 730. So you have the airplane now, Mike.
Alrighty. I have been an employee at Georgetown University for about 13.5 years, although that is actually ending at the end of this month. So my continued involvement in NFPA 730, I'm not sure if that's going to continue. I'm going to have to check on that. However, during my time at Georgetown, I was involved in the NFPA 730 for about the past 7 or 8 years, and was an official member shortly after joining the working group to put together the next version of NFPA 730, which was 7 or 8 years ago. We spent a lot of time working on the format of 730, and we rewrote quite a bit of it. One of the key sections that I worked quite a bit on is Chapter 11, which is for educational facilities, and hence why I was brought on for this discussion today. Some of my background includes a degree in electrical engineering. I'm a professional engineer, and I am a NFPA Certified Fire Protection, CFPA Certified Fire Protection Specialist, and I have other certifications as well.
So were you part of the original creation? Were you when they do a first draft? I think they were only in your, third cycle here? Am I mistaken?
Right. I joined in between the first and second, so I wasn't involved with the very first draft. I became involved in 2007.
Okay. And at that particular, I'm going to get the document information here. I should tell you, Mike, that I'm working in Firefox over here because this is how I can actually see the text of the existing text. But and that's what NFPA recommends you do when you're actually marking up the document. And then I'm over here in Chrome trying to get the background information. It's a little bit it could be a little bit confusing as you see me whipping around here, but I wanted to get I wanted our viewers to see that there is a related document, and you might be able to say a little bit about that. So here we are at the current edition. There are some archived versions of this, I think. You see current and prior editions. So it looks like it goes back to 2006.
Yeah, I wasn't involved with it in 2006. I started in 2007.
Yeah, I see, and that began in 2008. So, okay, fair enough. So we're basically in the what we'll call the 1, 2. So maybe it's really 5 revision. This is the 5th revision. Okay. Well, whatever the case, there is a related document. Could you? I don't want to put you on the spot or anything, but how much interaction did you have with the committee working on 731?
I am on the technical committee for both 730 and 731. So I was not an author of 731. I did review it and voted before approving it.
Mm-hmm. So is that an entirely separate committee?
It's actually the same committee. 730 and 731 is the same committee.
Okay, good. So what?
It's the Committee for Premises Security.
Mm-hmm. So what's remarkable here, we covered it in our language. We had a paper, Rich Davis and I produced a paper on this. There is a distinction between the standard for the installation of electronic premises security systems and just the guide to premises security. Could you, because other people may not know the distinction, could you say, let our listeners understand in a little more depth the distinction between a guide and a standard?
In short, a standard is what the NFPA lists as something that could later become adopted by a municipality to become part of the legal code. A guide, the NFPA is not aiming for it to become part of the letter of the law.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons why the 730 is a guide instead of a standard is because so much of it is based on doing a security vulnerability assessment, and that vulnerability assessment should dictate what the needs are of any organization rather than telling you that you need to have sprinklers 8 feet apart. Your security profile and your security vulnerability assessment will tell you what you need to do for security as opposed to explicitness.
I see. Okay. All right. Fair enough. I'm trying to get back to our home page for this particular project. So, okay. So one of the to give a little history to some of our other colleagues, we had actually begun tracking this back. There's a related document that that hit our radar some 6 years ago, maybe less than that, and this came about right around the time there had been some accidents, some other. Our industry tends to be prone to these marquee events, and so I know that there was a lot of concern publicly for why are our educational institutions, our schools, our colleges and universities so vulnerable to this sort of thing. And so I admired the work of what ASME did here. They actually tried to put some numbers to in the way the military, the Department of Defense, would look at a particular site and assess its risk and vulnerabilities. So regrettably, though, ASME, I believe, has withdrawn its support of this document, and I'm not sure what the reason might be. I want to take a guess that it has something to do with, it's going to have something to do with the risk in writing a risk analysis standard. Did I say that right? There's probably many ways of analyzing risk. I believe and you put yourself at risk by trying to put your method out there. I think this refers to a military type of approach. And we actually had a number of teleconferences with the authors of this report. I think we tried to get this referenced into 730 and or 731. It was very technical, and our interest in it was, if it was going to become public law, how much would a risk assessment cost a college or university? And that's what drew our interest to it, because we wanted to make sure that if we were going to have state agencies, say every college and university and school district has to have a risk assessment, what's it going to cost, and are there ways for non-professionals to commission a risk analysis that they're knowledgeable about, and they can make apples-to-apples comparisons. So there was our interest there. I don't know if we succeeded in doing that. I don't know. Maybe you have some insight into this. Were you aware of this one, Mike?
I'm not aware of that one. I know that there's been plenty of standards or guidelines published by various organizations, including ASIS has security analysis and security vulnerability assessments. There's also the SEPTED analysis and statements of that nature. And all of these are interesting, and they all formulate around the concepts of risk mitigation. I think one of the key points regarding any risk analysis, especially when you're talking about students, whether they be K through 12 or higher education, is sometimes the risk analysis itself creates risk, and it can create political issues as well as legal issues.
Yes, that was my recollection of this. Last time I touched this, there's actually a pretty sharp guy over there by, I'm forgetting the guy's name. I think his name is Jim, but he was part of ASME ITI. Evidently, within ASME, there's another enterprise, Innovative Technologies Institute, and this was their, oh, here we are. This was their product, and evidently it might not have been enough of an enterprise, or it was too much risk. Whatever the case, I haven't heard much of it. But getting back to my original point, all right, how does, if a school district or a college or university is going to be required to prepare a risk assessment, what is the branded, what is the generally accepted brand of risk assessment? You know, you had mentioned ASIS. It sounds to me like you're, what is that, American Security, what does ASIS mean again, Jim? Mike?
It doesn't mean anything anymore. It used to mean something American, but since they're international, they've dropped the abbreviation.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any trade association that's
ASISonline.org.
ASISonline.org. Yeah, they're all international. They're all online now.
Yep.
So, in the future, there will be no more.
I'm a member. So, as a disclaimer, I'm a member of ASIS, and I am a CPP, Certified Protection Professional, as well.
Okay. All right. So then, I think then that this group is the one that produces the risk assessments, the vulnerability assessments. This is the I see they obviously, it looks like they are a standards developer themselves, and it looks like they're in this space quite a bit. So when a school district or college universities has to get a risk assessment, I don't know which ones don't. Is this where they go?
That would be a starting point. They also have the, if you see the POA link at the top, very, very top.
Right here?
That's for the protection of assets.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well,
and that is a nice short 7,000 volume set. Maybe not quite that long, but it's a very comprehensive reference for protecting assets.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, we hear a lot more lately. There's a new term that seems to have bubbled up called resilience, supply chain resilience. I'm seeing that idea show up in a lot of proposals for standards and such and so forth. I guess since you've taken us here, what inspired NFPA 730 then? If this organization's been around, what is different from the body of knowledge coming out of this organization from NFPA 730? Help me with that.
It's an excellent question. I was not a part of the group that created the 730.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I'm not privy to that information.
I think I had talked to the project manager at some point, and they said it was driven largely by the insurance industry. Now, you know, NFPA is principally a fire safety organization. I think they try to hew to that charter. But if they have a strong enough interest, you know, fire is all part of safety also. So we're living in a world where organizations can come up with standards at any given time. course, the quality depends upon the brains and the experience and judgment of people like you. And so, that's another reason why I'm grateful to have your time here. So when you say it's a good question,
so one of the things with the NFPA is that being the author of the National Fire Code, the Fire Code, NFPA 1, Fire Alarm Code, NFPA 72, and the Electrical Code, NFPA 70, as well as lots and lots of other standards and guidelines, being able to reference one to another to create a large-scale safety and security risk reduction methodology in a comprehensive way.
So then if I were to look at the text of 730 then, this is a terrible search function. I don't know if I can get it. Let's see if they even if I'm able to find anything. Let's look at references here. Then, as I started to say, that very often jurisdiction, because the fire marshal's in charge of public safety, his universe and culture originates in the NFPA or the IBC or ICC, that he'll say, well, there must be an applicable NFPA standard, and so that standard suite tends to be the portal, so to say, of to other specialty organizations. So if I were to go here and say, see, that's the problem with Firefox. You're watching me struggle. I can't search. So if I were to say somewhere in here, there should be an ASIS document. Unfortunately, we're gaining a lot. Have you tried working? Have you tried working in this new environment, Mike? The TerraView environment.
Not much recently.
Yeah, I'm pretty much daily, and it's. Oh, here we are. Here we are.
Being one of the authors of NFPA 730, I actually have the Word document version of it.
Yeah, I do. Well, yeah, you're in the old days, you used to be able to just copy and paste, and you could work with it. I was never a person who ever violated any copyright. I just wanted some of the actual current text. I have plenty of electronic subscriptions that I can access, and it sure helped to be able to get in there and to do a cut and paste. But that, as you can see here, I would like to try to do this. See, I can't even. If you can see, the operation is not supported for the page, so I can't do that. So that's the trade-off we made. But it looks like at least ASIS intellectual property is referenced in here, and
which that brings me to another point about the reason why NFPA creates documents is because if the NFPA wants to reference something regarding a related topic such as premises security in another standard or guide, then they have the, I guess, copyright ownership of that other document. And they don't have to go out and get permission to reference something else.
Could you say that?
There's a lot of copyright discussions revolving around standards, any standards organization, whether it be ASIS, NFPA, or anybody else regarding reference materials.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see here. There's a lot here. Okay, well, we only have about 8 more minutes, and I see ASIS is a fairly well-developed. They're fairly down the road. They've got their act together. They know how to do it. And so getting back to then the 3 ideas I wanted to just bounce off of you here, and these actually draw from some of the questions we had early on, just for the benefit of the for our viewers out there. We did produce a. Let's see if I can get you to where Rich and I had prepared a. Here we are. An article for the Trade magazine, and this goes back to what, 2011. Again, this is a case where your audience are people that are not familiar with how fast standards move, and you just wanted to give them a real quick stroboscopic look at what's happening. there is this other document which is very often referenced. I guess I'm happy to say I've actually put some real reliability metrics into this thing here through IEEE, but that's a different teleconference. Regardless, this was just our way of trying to bring the industry and educate an industry. We weren't trying to do anything. We weren't trying to do anything disruptive here. We just wanted to let people know that a new cost or expectation would be coming your way, and it may find its way through this document when it's referenced, when a standard is adopted by reference. So that's why I always like to say you have to be careful. There's a lot of general purpose language that says, well, okay, this is what the law is, and in case in case you don't know what the law is, you're in charge of knowing what code and standards apply to you. So that's why we picked this one up. So there are three ideas I wanted to talk about here before we close, and I'll just I'll talk to them, all three of them first, and then you can answer them. The existing document really, let's get back to chapter 11 here. It's very generic. That's its strength and its weakness, of course, and I have a question that normally, at least in the building codes, egress and fire safety are not lumped together like this. Secondary schools, K-12 is a different use occupancy class than colleges and universities. Of course, among colleges and universities, there's differences in the student population, whether it's part of a campus, whether it's just a single building, whether you've got radiation experiments going on right next to the classrooms. That kind of stuff is going on in colleges and universities. So when you talk about educational, at least in research universities, there are far more complicated aggregation of risk. And then the other question had to do with special events at a place that you might have heard about. I took the liberty of trying to see if there's anything. I know that they're very, it seems to be people that are very capable and wanting to do the right thing here. So this is, when I go to a football game, there's quite a bit of security concern. And I don't know the degree to which this document wants to get there, but again, as an overarching document, whatever's here is probably included in there. And then my other question had to do with social media such as Twitter and what that does to the how you interact with people who are at risk. So do you want to take any of those three, Mike?
I'll say something brief about each one, and any comments that I made during this entire session, previously or coming up, of course, my own, and do not really, and are not explicitly the opinions of that of my employer, NFPA, ASIS, the university, or anybody else. Question number one, yeah, K through 12 and colleges can have differences. When we were looking at this, we discussed that there are quite a few high schools that have very concentrated subjects in, say, sciences with chemicals. We also looked at colleges and universities who are primarily trade schools or continuing education schools and who may not have any of the things normally associated with a university. We also looked at the fact that K through 12 can have boarding schools. Universities sometimes have students who live on campus, sometimes they don't. So that's why we kind of lumped it all together, because it's not an occupational thing, and because once again, the security vulnerability assessment is the driver for everything. Universities in particular, big, large comprehensive universities, can have virtually every occupation category in the entire NFPA. Some have hospitals, some have child care facilities, some have on-campus police with detention and lockup facilities, some have chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear explosive facilities on campus. So as you mentioned, the generality of it is the strength and also the weakness of it. And that also falls into the nature of it being a guide.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The other question then, let's see, that had to do with, what was that question? Special events. You actually do have a chapter here on special events, if I'm not mistaken. Here we are. Yeah, but it's not within a guide. It's an annex within a guide. So it's a lot of good ideas.
Right. It's very much just for informational purposes. It's pretty, it's very short and vague. And again, talks about the security vulnerability assessment. The 730 is more about the premises security rather than operational security. So that webpage that you were pointing to, a lot of those topics are operational, day-to-day, and at the actual event, as opposed to vulnerability assessments and designs for how things are laid out.
Yeah.
So I hear it says the security committee should review experiences of the prior events to see what happened, what worked, what didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, again, it's information in a guide.
Mm-hmm. Yep, yep.
And
you're right. This premises security, the premises is a key. I keep coming back to that.
yeah, we're less. It's not concentrating much on personnel security as much as the premises, and the premises protect the people.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Whereas at a large event, you usually have a lot of security staff on site to do both premises and personnel security.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. And then finally, our last question here. I'm not sure if we'll be putting any, in light of everything that you've told me, and we've got all these wonderful references, and in light of the fact that it is a premises security document, that I have a feeling there's no good idea here that might not have found an inspiration elsewhere, or vice versa. So my sense that these folks have things fairly well covered. But again, I come back to my concern that the NFPA suite dominates safety culture, and for that reason, we remind anything that NFPA produces has to be taken seriously. So even though there are other areas, other organizations, obviously, that are closer to the field, the expertise. And then finally, this one here, how is I know, for example, we have a Twitter site, and this is an example of how Michigan State this is the University of Michigan, but if I go back to Michigan State here, they use Twitter to interact with their student population, and so their customers, as you can see here. What are your thoughts? Is that a notion that at least should be recognized in this document here? It's been 3 years, and that's forever in social media. Any thoughts on that?
That's an excellent question. Regarding the standard, there are standards regarding mass notification, or guidance, I should say. But using social media for mass notifications has inherent pros and cons. Some of the pros are you can reach a larger audience. But some of the cons are that in order for somebody to receive notification of something via Twitter, they would have to piece out that one emergency notification out of the 5 million things of all of their Twitter followers where they say that they're brushing their teeth and they're going to bed.
Mm-hmm.
Or a whole bunch of random hashtags of things, or TV shows, or other things that are not emergency communication oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Additionally, Twitter is a specific application.
That's it.
Facebook is a specific application. So if Twitter, say for instance, were to shut down, as did GoWalla, for instance, then you lose that medium. as opposed to a phone call, a text message, or even email, even though email is not usually considered to be emergency, urgent notification. It is a protocol as opposed to a copyrighted application.
Mm-hmm.
It's a single vendor thing. There's a lot of great products out there that can be used to integrate phone calls, text messages, and email notifications into one. The other big issue that I've seen with the various social media contexts is what do you put out and making sure that it's consistent across the board. Because Twitter only allows you a very small number of characters in a message as opposed to an email, for instance.
Yeah. Well, it is tracking here as I pulled up here for the record for this call, and it
Yep.
the degree to which.
So in short.
Yep.
So in short, yes, use social media, but be aware of the caveats of it, and what is the intent of it. Is it for important things, urgent things, things that are urgent and important, or just informational?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I think there's a lot of good people, obviously, that are working on this problem. Right now in front of me is a document that I take seriously, and I've had the benefit of somebody who basically wrote Chapter 11, and for that I'm grateful. I'm trying to find my way back to our agenda here so we haven't missed anything. Oops, that's, yeah, here we are today. So I think that we'll probably put in a comment or two. I don't see it because it's such a general document. I do want to be in the loop on how it evolves, but it strikes me that as all these other organizations get specific about what has to be done with respect to risk assessments and use of social media for enunciation, that NFPA 730 will just rise and stay on top of it and stay general. And I think if you think you're going to be part of the next work group, if we can talk to you after the meeting, it looks to me like they're going to be meeting, probably an online meeting. Is that right? Do you guys ever meet in person?
Oh yes.
Yep.
If you don't mind, go back to that last page you were just at. I want to right here. So if you see right here, where it's talking about the various social media and the things, so it goes to my point. On the page, there's links for printing, emailing, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+, and I don't know what the last thing is, possibly some more. And those are very specific towards certain audiences.
Yep. You're actually, when you move your mouse around, you should be able to point to it. Can you see your mouse? I just gave you access to be able to, because I wasn't seeing what you were talking about.
Right there under Are You Prepared?
Yep. You mean right here?
Right there.
Okay, yeah, okay. All right.
So that's just a very short list of social media platforms.
Yeah, and plus my kids, I think, are...
And somebody's...
Yeah,
and people can be on one, the other, or none.
Yeah, they're not settled. I think my kids, I have 3 teenagers, I think they've long left, say, Facebook behind. Facebook is now for old people. For a while they were using Snapchat, and now I'm starting to hear other types of social media that is not ready for the adults yet. So I'm kind of amused myself at how there seem to be 2 or 3 social media platforms ahead of us, and they don't want us older folks to know. So that much, I'm sure some of that's going on in colleges. So, well, Mike, thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're going to be meeting, let's see, if they actually publish a schedule for you. Let's see. I'll put some comments, some non-little comments in, make them think a little harder about whether they want to do stuff. Very often, if I don't know a specific language, I'll make a general statement and see how it tracks. They're not really saying where the, so it looks like we need, so this will be, we'll get something in, we'll see the results of your deliberations. You probably only had 100 or 200, typically 100 or 200 comments or proposals during this document's revision. Did you?
I'm not sure how many.
Yeah, okay. All right, we'll get a few of them in there and we'll move on. So, okay, great. I hope you have good holidays. You know where you can find us here. We keep this site going pretty much on a daily basis. I enter things. I have colleagues here that help me out. So as you can see here, pretty much every day we're looking at a new standard, and then because they tend to we announce them, we're following things pretty much by the hour here. We're also working, so you can see that our focus is largely on movement and trying to stay up to the moment, and where we can front run the trend and get ideas out in front of these committees that are data informed. Try to get people to the meetings, argue from their heart, come back, and then try to drive it through their industry's culture. A much harder job. So, okay, thank you very much, Mike. I hope you have a good weekend, good holidays, and best of luck to you.
Thank you. You as well.
Bye-bye.